Hey everyone, and welcome to CWLbuilds. I'm Caleb, and today we're going to be making the Super Sledge from Fallout 4. I'm starting with this block of EVA foam, which is a few pieces barged together, and some couplings, which I will show here. The first thing I do is sand off all the bumps and ridges on these couplings. Now, after completing some very accurate blueprints, we can glue it all together. Using this thin styrene plastic, I can make the details on the end of the rocket booster. After adding a few more details with more styrene plastic and craft foam, the rocket is now complete. Now we can work on the actual sledgehammer part. This is that block of EVA foam I showed you earlier. And what I'm going to do is cut down in some precise areas, and that'll form it into the shape of the sledgehammer. These fiberglass pins will act as supports for the PVC rocket, as it's slightly heavier than the EVA foam. I'm not sure what to exactly call this, but it's some octagon piece of metal that is welded to the bottom of the sledgehammer. I'm just making that EVA foam, and I'm going to glue it to the bottom of my sledgehammer. Now, using some thin wooden dowels, I make some imitation bolts that go on the side of the Super Sledge. That mark right there will be sanded flat a tad bit. The middle marks will have thin twine wrapped around it, and the edge will have a thin piece of craft foam wrapped around it for more detail. I use 5mm craft foam to make the hex bolts. Now this may look familiar if you watched my video on making Poe Dameron's leg flares, and that's because they are Poe Dameron's leg flares. This was an offcast that I cut in half, and I'm using that for the spark plug that goes on the side of the sledgehammer. I made the handle off screen, but basically what it is it's just two pieces of PVC pipe, one slightly bigger than the other, and the round end and the transition point between the two is made out of epoxy sculpt. This release valve on the side of the handle is made out of PVC and that same wooden dowel that I made the bolts from. Now the whole thing is ready for paint, and the first coat is a coat of black Plasti-Dip. And now for a coat of silver spray paint. And the handle or fuel canister gets a coat of nice yellow paint. Other details are painted yellow as needed. And now for my favorite part, weathering. This is blackwash, which is a mix of rubbing alcohol and black acrylic paint, and I brush it over everything, then taking a dry, clean paper towel, I wipe away and dab away most of it so that only little bits stay in the cracks and crevices. I'm about to rust a very large portion of this build, so I mask off areas that I don't want too much rust, and this is the masking tape that I use. First, I spritz the area with this blue bottle that contains a half and half mixture of Mod Podge and water. Then I sprinkle on iron dust using a spray paint can lid and a dryer sheet. Finally, I spritz it all with a spritzer that holds a mix of hydrogen peroxide, salt, and white vinegar. And be patient, you won't see it rust right away, just wait till it dries, and once it dries, then you'll start seeing the rust. And now that the main body is rusted, I go through and add small details of rust throughout the rest of the sledgehammer. Now using a dry brush, I just brush down the entire piece to get any loose flakes of metal off. For the fuel line, I'm using this piece of garden sprinkler hose. Now very carefully I drill the holes for the fuel line. And one of my last steps I do is I take black acrylic paint and I very lightly dry brush it over all the rust areas. And finally, just a touch touch of silver rub and buff. Thank you all for sticking with me to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed watching me build this super cool prop from a super cool game, Fallout 4. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, put them down in the comment section. I'll try to get back to you. And as always, I will see you in the next video.